Hi guys, welcome back. My name is Scott, and today we're going to be looking at another baseplate tutorial. Specifically, we're looking at how I've been designing the baseplates for my recent Ork models. Now you'll see I do a grate, usually on about half of my baseplate, and then I do a nice rock, rubble, concrete patterning on the other half. So let's go ahead and dive into how I've done this baseplate. The first thing we're going to do with this base plate is we're going to put the model on the base plate, roughly where we want the feet to go. We're going to make some guide marks just with a pencil. And this is just to help us so that as we start putting debris and terrain on this base, we know roughly where the feet are going to sit. We're going to try and leave those spaces empty so the model can glue directly to the base. The first thing we're going to add to this base plate is 7 mesh plastic canvas, also known as granny grate. Now usually I just figure out what portion of the base I want to be covered with this, and then I go through with my plastic clippers and I just clip off the piece that I need following the outline of the base. And this gives me roughly the shape I need. Once we have our piece of mesh cut out, our next step is to glue down the mesh. And we're just going to use some basic super glue for this. With the piece of mesh glued down, we're now going to take our plastic clippers and we're going to just trim off any of the extra mesh that's hanging over the edge of the base plate. Now, this is just a personal preference. I don't like to have excess terrain hanging over the edges of my base plates. With that all done, we're going to take some cork board, and we're just going to figure out where we want there to be rocks and pieces of concrete on this base. We're then going to break off a few small pieces, and glue them down with some super glue. And there's no real method or initial vision in my mind when I do this. I just kind of go with whatever looks right in the moment. With our main pieces of debris glued down, we're now going to go and grab some smaller pieces, and I keep a container usually that's just filled with extra pieces of corkboard and sand. We're just going to grab a few of those, and we're going to glue them down in a few random spots just to give some smaller rocks to kind of mix up the appearance of this base. Once the glue is dried, we're going to go through and we're going to begin to chip the corkboard. Now you can do this with an X-Acto blade or with your fingernail, but the goal is to make the edges of the corkboard look more natural, like they're cracked pieces of concrete or just rock formations. Now if you're planning to paint the model while he's on his base plate, then at this point you'll want to glue the model to the base plate before you add any sand or smaller, finer debris. Now we're going to add sand to the base, and I'm using a toothpick to just kind of spread the glue around so that it gets into all the crevices under the feet. But once the glue's in place, just take some sand from my debris box, and I'm just going to sprinkle this all over the glued areas. Now it's time to begin painting the base plate. And the first thing we're going to do is base coat this all with a very cheap gray paint. In this case I've used Apple Barrel Pewter Gray, which you can buy at Walmart. Now I use cheap paints for the base plate colors because most of the time there's materials on the base that are just going to absorb all the paint. So I don't want to use an expensive paint where I'm going to use double what I would normally use. Once that gray is dried, I'm going to use Citadel Agrax Earthshade, and I'm going to wash this over the entire base. And this is going to give that gray a somewhat brown tone, and the result is going to be just kind of a weathered, dirty looking debris look, which is exactly what we want. Once we've allowed the shade to dry, we're going to take Citadel Wraithbone and we're going to dry brush this over all of the rock formations. Now you can do this over the grate as well, but you don't need to because we are going to paint that with a silver color in the next step. Now we're going to take Leadbelcher from Citadel, and we're going to paint this on the grate. Now be careful not to get this in the gaps in the grate, because we do want it to appear like there's rock underneath the grate. Now if you don't like the dark nature of Leadbelcher, you can use a brighter silver. It's all up to whatever you think looks good. I decided I wanted to add a small rust effect to the base, so I take Citadel Cassandora Yellow, and I'm going to wash this just over a few random chunks of the metal grate, but not everywhere. I just want this to be in patches. Now to make this start to look like rust, I'm going to dry brush Troll Slayer Orange from Citadel over the top of the yellow shade that we just put down. I'm then going to immediately dry brush a layer of Citadel Corn Red, but not over the entire yellow area, just in certain patches to give some contrasting colors. Finally, we're going to take some Citadel Abaddon Black, and we're going to do just a very minor dry brush just on the areas we want to look the most dirty on this base. With that, our base plate is done. Thank you so much for watching today. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, go ahead and like it, and subscribe to my channel, and then go ahead and comment and let me know what style of bases you'd like to see in the future. Or maybe there's another specific project you'd like to see me do in the future. As always, have an amazing day, and we'll see you in the next one.